Credibility side, Bad Bass Alice representing on behalf of dancehall. Station of all time, Global TV, Brothers of all time, Alice in a rep, yeah, General of all time. Master with me say you, but the people them love you bad. Fully informative, salute, like they have to live.
Can't fool me again. You can't fool me again. You hold me down for a very long time. Can't buy sugar, we can't buy lime. Can't buy scandal, we can't buy time. You can't fool me again. Can't fool me again. You can't fool me again. Hold me down for a very long time. Can't buy sugar, we can't buy lime. You touch up line and a resort to crime. You can't fool me again.
What people do in no money, what you at you, in no at you. Covid money, miss away in the yellow correct you. Use the youth, them on the waste, and must have mantis statue. Say me like a catch you, but bigger than a figure you. Take this print of money, God, and say that it's not you. One day, the man above end up, him, I got a bed. Too much it in the kitchen, some fly by like a patu. When singers and DJs and social media's coming at you.
It burn me.
300% free.
It burn me.
Garbage pile of it.
It burn me.
Give the teacher them raise.
It burn me.
I see corruption peace.
It burn me.
Mash down the people them house.
It burn me.
Every day appear arms out.
It burn me.
Appear money them a thief.
It burn me.
And them a sell out the beach.
Can't fool me again. You can't fool me again. You hold me down for a very long time. Can't buy sugar, we can't buy lime. Can't buy scandal, we can't buy time. You can't fool me again. Can't fool me again. You can't fool me again. You hold me down for a very long time. Can't buy sugar, we can't buy lime. You touch up line and a resort to crime. You can't fool me again.
For me say big up all the charities and all of the givers. Some a go like say them powerful, me no make a bigger. The 100 the promises, none of them no deliver. Cut up the youth, they rap and they down in a whatever. Member bowl honey and they lie them tell. Corruption smell and they pocket them swell. When police don't a market like Satan out of hell, go mash up people start like thief when them sell.
It burn me.
Or they treat the market man.
It burn me.
Or them a treat the cat man.
It burn me.
Or they treat the peanut man.
It burn me.
Or them a treat the jerk man.
It burn me.
Or them a treat the son man.
It burn me.
Or them a treat policeman.
It burn me.
How them a treat soldier man.
It burn me.
How them a treat everyone.
Can't fool me again. You can't fool me again. You hold me down for a very long time. Can't buy sugar, we can't buy lime. Can't buy scandal, we can't buy time. You can't fool me again. Can't fool me again. You can't.
Incidents in our society often shows us how our ruling class, our legislator, and our security services operate. It does sometimes show us the state of our country. When a politician can stand against free speech, but refuse to use the word killing or murder or distance themselves from that which is alleged. This is the state of our country. Call the ripe mango. We're going to stone anything ripe this evening. Good evening and welcome to Global TV. This is the people's point of view. And tonight we are back in our London studios. And we want to say good evening to those on TikTok. Good evening to those on the X. Good evening to those on Facebook. And of course, our mother platform, YouTube. Good evening to everyone. Good evening. Good evening. Thank you very much for joining me. Thank you all for those of you who send me your condolences over the last few days. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. I've done 2 days of funeral in the West Midlands. I'm back in my London studios for a few hours, and then I'll be moving off somewhere again. I don't know where I will end up, but thank you all very much for your support. As you can see tonight, we will continue to be looking at the murder, the crime, the concealment of the crime, and those who cover up the crime and the concealment. It is rather striking that Mark Golden is coming to the poll via the local election in February. And while we all want to get rid of a corrupt, crooked dictator, one that we can call a fraudster and a thief, because our current prime minister cannot verify his asset, nor can he substantiate his asset by receipt to the IC. So therefore, we know that we have a prime minister as a crook. However, we've seen over the last 2 years where more and more the nation is getting absolutely fed up of the crook that we have at the helm of our nation. But how easy does it sit with us at the moment to change a crook for one who stands seemingly, fairly and squarely behind an alleged murderer? How can Mark Golden ask us in a local or general election to vote for the People's National Party when the People's National Party cannot use the word killing or murder? Before I go over to Dr. Campbell tonight, because I have quite a few of them to waddle through, before I go over to Dr. Campbell tonight, I want to ask Dr. Campbell to look up 3 things in the dictionary. I won't tell you what they mean. You're a doctor. Both of us went to university. But look up the definition of tragic death. Also, look up the definition of killing. More so, you can even go further by look up the definition of unlawful killing. As well as you can look up the definition of murder. What is wrong with the People's National Party? Why they cannot use the word killing or murder? What is a tragic death, Dr. Campbell? What is a tragic death, Dr. Campbell? But we will get back to that. When Mark Golden came out and gave his condolences, and I would assume his support to Julian Silvera, did Mark Golden was Mark Golden aware of suspicions and discrepancies at the Silvera's residence on the morning of the 11th of November? Was Mark Golden aware of any irregularities, any suspicions, any discrepancies at the Silvera residence when he came out on the 11th of November? It is important that we know what they knew and when they had that information. Now we know that we're in a major cover-up where a politician allegedly murdered his wife, immediately attempt to conceal the crime. A string of cover-up followed. by possibly the undertaker, the doctor, whatever first responder that was there, including the right mango, made a horrible blunder. And not just a horrible blunder, made a cold and calculating strategic move by washed us in grief and planted the narrative that she died peacefully in her sleep. Because as long as you did in your sleep, before we hear about the gunshot, we assume peacefully. Dr. Campbell, an accident could be a tragic death for a young person. A heart attack, Dr. Campbell, could be a tragic death for a young person. But when a person, Dr. Campbell, is shot multiple times, why do you refuse to use the word killing of MelissaSilvera or murder of MelissaSilvera? How is this a tragic death? How is this a tragic death, Dr. Campbell? A tragic death could fall into the first story you all gave us. That's a tragic death. She's a young woman, appear healthy, went to bed, and didn't wake up. That could be classified, Dr. Campbell. You are a doctor. Back of the class, dunce. You are a doctor. The cover-up story we got could be classified as a tragic death. But how does a murder, Dr. Campbell, become a tragic death? All right, why not a tragic killing? A tragic death could be a heart attack. It could be a drowning. It could be an accident. Why not a tragic killing or the tragic murder? Why is the People's National Party refusing to use that word? Is it because it's a uptown crime? Is it because it's rich people crime? Why is Dr. Campbell and the People's National Party is refusing to use the word killing or murder? For me, there's quite a difference. But you have grave concern of the developments, Dr. Campbell. At what point will the People's National Party make it quite clear that the People's National Party distance themselves from Julian Silvera? The public didn't even have to beg you. Sorry. In the case of Isaac Buchanan and Paula Llewellyn and free speech, the public didn't have to urge you, Mark Golden, to distance yourself from Isaac Buchanan. You did so speedily on the directions of the PSOJ. Is the PSOJ in league with what is happening here? Is the PSOJ standing behind the People's National Party, which is involved in the covering up of a murder? Is Mark Golden waiting for a direction from the PSOJ before Mark Golden can distance himself and the People's National Party from MelissaSilvera? Who is MelissaSilvera to Mark Golden? Who is MelissaSilvera to Mark Golden? Of recent, MelissaSilvera has been behind Mark Golden quite regular. Is he a member of Mark Golden's security team? Is Mr. Silvera the head of Mark Golden's security? Like and share the live, please, because we have important questions to ask tonight. Because one thing we will not do is allow them to conceal or cover up this crime. Because those who are involved in the crime, the concealment, and the cover-up are the ones who we are relying on to keep us safe and to protect us and to fight crime to keep us safe. So we have to hold them accountable. Who is MelissaSilvera to Mark Golden? I cannot remember during the time surrounding the Isaac Buchanan incident where there was any photograph of Mark Golden and Isaac Buchanan floating around. We've all seen a relation and a connection between Mark Golden and MelissaSilvera in public of recent. Mark Golden was one of the first. Mark Golden was one of the first to come out and offer his condolences and sympathy. That sympathy and condolences you offered then, Mark Golden. You offered, I would assume, to a grieving husband whose wife died in her sleep next to him, as con to what Bobby Montague says on the 11th of November after he spoke to MelissaSilvera. So does that apology, does that condolences you gave on that morning, is it still to the potential murderer or is it to the Silvera's children? Is it to the alleged murderer, Mr. Golden, that you are sending your condolences? Or is it to the Silvera's children? This needs to be clarified in public, Mr. Golden. Now that we know what we know, we need you to clarify in public who you are sending your condolences to. What is your relation with MelissaSilvera? What is MelissaSilvera's current relationship with the People's National Party? Will the People's National Party stand behind MelissaSilvera, or will the People's National Party distance themselves from MelissaSilvera? You are coming to the country in a local elections in 2 months. You are coming to the country in a local election within 2 months. Are you seriously asking the country, Mr. Golden, to vote for a party and the president of a party who is covering up a murder? Is that what you're asking the nation to do, Mr. Golden? Is to vote for a leader of the opposition, vote a leader of the opposition into our government who is covering up a murder, Mr. Golden? Is that what you're expecting of the nation come February in a local elections? To vote for those who are covering up alleged murderers? Because logic would tell us, even though the law prescribed that innocent before proven guilty, by logic, we can call Mr. Silvera a murderer, but we're going to use the alleged word for the sake of. But at first, Mr. Silvera woke up to find his wife dead next to him. Then, 5-6 weeks later, all of a sudden, Mr. Silvera's wife was shot. Then we found out Mr. Silvera wasn't at home when his wife was shot. So she did not die in her sleep next to you anymore, Mr. Silvera, as you told Bobby Montague? Or as you made it out to everybody to believe that your wife died peacefully in her sleep next to you? What was the commotion? We're going to come back to your Mount Golden. We're not done with you yet. What was the commotion at the Silvera's residence on the 11th, on the morning of the 11th of November? What was the commotion at the Silvera's residence that would make Ripe Mango a political vlogger and all of the other what she is? What would make she drive there, run on foot, hire Uber, hire taxi, cycle, however she get there? But in her words, she was on the scene pretty quickly after the blunder. It is no one that is placing Ripe Mango on the scene. She placed herself on the scene, and then she had the nerve to use a phrase after I made a post: drowning man clutching after straw. That, Miss Ripe Mango, would be applicable at the moment to the People's National Party, who've all been caught out in public covering up a crime, and now they're all running over the place panicking that Dr. Campbell cannot write a straight statement to put out in public. That's the definition of drowning man clutching at straw. But one thing for sure, we will not let people like you, narrative-driven people like you, or political information proxy like you, come out here acting like Dr. Nesbitt and Fitzbailey at once. Because what you have done, Dr. Nesbitt, is you went straight for the pronouncement of death. You told us on social media what the pronouncement of death was. And the cause for the pronouncement, You, Miss Ripe Mango, told us that. It's not that we are making it up. You said you were there within hours. You said initially the husband was not there. Who got there first? Was it Ripe Mango or Mr. Silvera? How did you know initially Mr. Silvera wasn't there at first? How did Ripe Mango know Mr. Silvera wasn't there at first? The husband was not present initially. How does Ripe Mango come across this information? Did you get there before Mr. Silvera? What was the scene when you got there? What caused you? What caused you to make your way to the Silvera's residence? When you get there, was it a panicking situation? If you got there before Mr. Silvera, and Mr. Silvera arrived while you were there, how shocked did Mr. Silvera seem? What was Mr. Silvera's mood? What was the mood of the about 30 people you said was there? The whole of we are Jamaican, when there's something that happen, we are sus all about. Neighbor must be there talk. What was the conversation on the morning you were on the scene? You are an after the fact eyewitness. You got to the murder scene before the body was removed from the murder scene. What was the mood when you got there? What were people saying? There were 30 people there. Were they crying? Were they friends? Were they families? What was the mood on the scene the morning when Ripe Mango got there? You said you got there within hours. You went for the diagnosis. So in your capacity, you were there as Dr. Nesbitt, as well as Fitzbailey. As a social justice vlogger and a woman, does it sit well with you in how you've been caught up in the cover-up of a crime? Was Ripe Mango really on the scene the morning? Or did her People's National Party operative give their proxy a narrative to put out in public so something stick in our mind just in case Bangarang hit the floor? Was Ripe Mango really on the scene of the crime, or was she given a narrative by members of the People's National Party? How do you feel as a woman if you were to speak to Mrs. Silvera's children in public? Source say Mr. Silvera had indicated he was not at home. Where were you, Mr. Silvera? If you were not at home, Mr. Silvera, who are the eyewitness? Who are the eyewitnesses or eyewitness, Mr. Silvera, that could verify that you were not at home, or how long you was not at home for? Who are the eyewitnesses, Mr. Silvera, that could verify that you were not at home? Can your phone record, Mr. Silvera, from a cell site reading, prove that you were not at home all night or a part of the night, or a specific time frame of the night that you may have given? Can your telephone cell site verify the information you're giving, Mr. Silvera, that you were not at home? Or did you leave your mobile phone at home, or have you lost your mobile phone, Mr. Silvera? If you were not at home, are there any eyewitnesses that can verify that? I saw Mr. Silvera. Mr. Silvera was out with us having a drink or a meal. Is there any eyewitness that can corroborate Mr. Silvera's story that he was not at home? If not, can Mr. Silvera can the cell site reading from Mr. Silvera's mobile phone corroborate Mr. Silvera's story that he was not at home all night, a part of the night, or a specific period for the night? But after you woke up, Mr. Silvera, to find your wife dead next to you, and then now to find out that your wife was murdered, and then now to further found out that you weren't at home, then you need to be able to back up these stories. If you were at home, your telephone cell site can verify that. It would log to a particular cell site when you're at home. If you were out and about, your phone will go through various cell sites while moving about. Has Mr. Silvera's phone been taken for cell site analysis? Has Fitz-Bailey taken Silvera's mobile phone for a cell site analysis? Because one of the things that Mr. Silvera may be relying on is that he was not at home. But we will get back to that later. Mr. Silvera wasn't at home. Mr. Silvera must then provide alibi to show where he was and who he was with. Failing to do that, Fitz-Bailey should also collect a reading of the cell site connection from Mr. Silvera's phone. As well as Fitz-Bailey is also to question Ripe Mango based on her argument. She said initially the husband was not there initially. What time did Mr. Silvera arrive at the residence? This is a question for KamlaForbesz Ripe Mango. What time did Mr. Silvera arrive at the residence? Did Mr. Silvera arrive there when you were there? Or after you got there, did you hear someone said Mr. Silvera just arrived or arrived earlier? How did you come by the information to give it to the public that Mr. Silvera wasn't there initially? Have you been given a narrative? Have you been given a narrative to paint a picture in public to support Mr. Silvera? When they are ready to start attacking Mrs. Silvera's reputation, will you be the one? Global TV will take a break, and when we come back, we will continue our questioning.
Stibbidim day, stibbidim day, stibbidim day. We in Global TV say certain kind of friend we no keep, and some informer friend we love like. We in Global, bona fake friend and bona tape. We in Global, we not promote them, we not support them. Look at them on the cheek, come here represent for. We in Global TV, check it.
Yes, good evening and welcome back to the People's Point of View. This is your Global TV, and tonight we are broadcasting from our London studio, and we are on the issue of crime and cover-up, the crime committed by politicians, the concealment of the crime, and the cover-up aided by a litany and string of public officials or people in public offices. Mainstream media is caving over the issue, is diving under the desk, and is failing to deal with the issue. And in our generation, it is our duty to ask the questions. We no longer rely on those who are paid and bought to ask questions on our behalf. We have the forum to do so now. And it's all of us' duty to make sure we ask those questions. How did KamlaForbesz come to the conclusion or was able to provide us the information that the husband wasn't there initially? Who did you got the argument from? That doctor, that sorry, one siren passing the window on the night disturbed me. Who did you got the argument from that Mrs. Silvera died of an aneurysm? Did you see her body? You said it wasn't a lot of blood. She was bleeding through her nose. It wasn't a lot of blood. Did you, Camilla Ripe Mango Forbes, see the body of Mrs. Silvera? How did you know the amount of blood came out or coming out of Mrs. Silvera's nostril? Did you, KamlaForbesz, see Mrs. Silvera's body? And if you did, what was the condition of Mrs. Silvera's body? What was she wearing? Did you see her clothes? Was she covered up? You said there wasn't, it was not a lot of blood. We thought it was an aneurysm because, let me remove this thing so you see it clearly. because she was bleeding through her nose. How did KamlaForbesz came by this information? Did you see MelissaSilvera's body? Did you speak to people who saw her body that morning? Did you speak to Mr. Silvera? Or were you asked by Mark Golden and Dayton Campbell to run the narrative? To run the protected narrative? Were you given a narrative to run, or were you there? You went there in your statement on social media. You went there, seemed to be acting as Dr. Nesbitt and Fitzbailey all at once. Will Fitzbailey be questioning KamlaForbesz? Have Fitzbailey already questioned KamlaForbesz? She is a witness on the scene of the crime after the murder was committed. The body was still on the scene of the crime. Okay. Camilla said Mr. Silvera wasn't at home. Mr. Silvera said he wasn't at home. Backed up by Kamala, whatever she named, who said initially he wasn't there. Where was he? Both of you need to say where Mr. Menchon was at the time. Okay, we're going to play a dumb. We're going to play a backwards and foo-foo like Dayton Campbell. We're going to play a ballsless and spineless like Mark Golden. And we're going to turn a blind eye, stick we head in the sun as an ostrich like Angela Brownberg. We're going to act fool. We're going to really act fool and buy Mr. Silvera's story. Him wasn't at home. Oh, what a sad thing for Mr. Silvera to have come home and to see his wife dead and bleeding, because if Mr. Silvera commit the crime, because we have to think and wonder, you know, if Mr. Silvera commit the crime, now that we know it's a crime, when Mr. Silvera come home, blood and all sort and something have the all an injection they use killer, a gunshot, more than one. Make we buy Silvera's story that he wasn't there, but Silvera came home to found his wife shot dead. Did Mr. Silvera call 119? Did Mr. Silvera on coming home to find his healthy wife dead, did Mr. Silvera call 119? Or did Mr. Silvera opt to call a corrupt brown uniform inspector? Did Mr. Silvera call the emergency services? You're in corporate Jamaica. You're in a Uptown, did Mr. Silvera call the emergency services? Or who was the first person? If Mr. Silvera wasn't at home, who was the first person that found Mrs. Silvera's body? If Mr. Silvera wasn't at home, who was the first person to discover Mr. Silvera's body? Because he wasn't at home. And we are swallowing every inch of that pill that Mr. Silvera wasn't at home. Who was the first person to discover Mrs. Silvera's body? Who called the brown uniform police rather than the emergency services? Who found Mrs. Silvera's body? Good evening, sunny days. Welcome to Global TV. I don't know if my audio go work, because the whole of my instrument them left for Birmingham and me depend on some disabling devices. So, audience, please let me know if you can hear.
Okay, good night. Good night. I hope everybody can hear. I was listening to you and I have to call you, Wayne. Good evening to give you a strength.
Good evening.
And to tell you thanks for keeping this conversation going of this murder cover-up of this healthy mother of three and wife. That is a political cover-up that is clear as day, that I have never seen such a thing, Wayne. If you have seen this, tell me. This girl, what named KamlaForbesz, how is it that a blogger can go on a scene of a death and diagnose?
Remember, do not use the word death, because I'm upset with the PNP for using the word death.
No, you are right.
It's either killing or murder.
At that time, we the people only knew it.
Precisely. That's true.
Yes, so how is it that a blogger can say that she was on the scene, and I quote, "We thought that it was an aneurysm because she was bleeding from the..." Who is we?
Then this is why this woman needs to answer a lot of questions.
Remember, in Jamaica, you cannot get an autopsy in less than 6 weeks, and that is why this murder was able to cover up for so long. Because we only have 5 pathologists in Jamaica. Meanwhile, we're averaging 1,500 murders per year. We have over 400 deaths by accident. We have suicide. We have natural causes. So you cannot have 5 pathologists working these autopsies and expect to get a report in less than 6 weeks. Yes, under normal circumstances, if we had enough staff, we would have known at least 2 days after Melissa's death that she was murdered. But with that time of 6 weeks, you know what they had a chance to do? To cover it up and not be able to get caught. Now that they are caught 6 weeks later, they're doing damage control.
Yes, precisely. That's why they're panicking and running all over the place.
Yes, I want to know. You show something where you said that Bobby Montague, the sitting member of parliament, was told by Silvera, that's according to him, He said on November...
Bobby Montague said it, not us.
No, Bobby Montague said it. And he said he spoke with Mr. Silvera.
Correct. It's on screen at the moment.
Told. Yes, Wayne, I see it. So thank you for that. She passed suddenly and peacefully with her husband at her side.
Whose story is correct?
Didn't we hear that he wasn't there?
Whose
Didn't we hear
story?
that?
This is the question. Whose story is correct?
They said that the son discovered the mother and called him the husband. That's what they're talking
Would
about.
they seriously be bringing the children into this fiasco given what they're going through?
Boy, Wayne, I don't know what to say now. The only
Are
thing I
they
can
going
say
to go after Mrs. Silvera's reputation later on?
yes, I think that's what they're going to
We
do.
are
And
watching
also,
them.
yes, I think what they're going to do now is to either put the blame on the police and then look more from this, they might hear say, she did herself in because of the weapon that they're now saying was used.
Mhm.
Remember, somebody can't prove themselves 3 times enough. But anyway, you hear them start say the weapon that was used, it would have been a .22 and a woman alone fire them there. So them already cover it up, and this is a political cover up.
It's a state cover up.
Covering up this murder.
It's
Yes.
a state cover up. The Labour them really silenced though, but me think them a wait for February to use it beat Mark Golden. But it shall be a war with me and Mark Golden because Mark Golden cannot ask us to vote for somebody who is standing shoulder to shoulder with an alleged murderer. It is not fair for the nation to walk away from a thief and go and vote for alleged murderers.
When I see a few of them asking what this has to do with Mark Golding, in case
Everything.
they don't know, let me just tell them that Silvera is a chairman in St. Mary representing the PNP. He is also a member of the People's National Party. And he had been walking hand in hand, side by side with Mark Golding. Every day he's on the road until the murder took place.
Mhm.
So Mark Golding, as the leader of the PNP, he should have said to the nation and put on the record that Silvera had been relieved of his duties to the PNP until the investigation is closed.
Yes.
Am I right, Amara?
You're right. He needs to
Okay.
say something in public. That condolences, if what we know now, that condolences that Mark Golden gave on the 11th cannot stand. Are you, Mark Golden, saying you're giving condolences to an alleged murderer?
Well, he's saying that I don't know if it's the last statement that came out, but what they basically said is they're aware of the turn of events and they are for the continuation of an investigation. But no time did they say, like you said, no time did they acknowledge that the woman was murdered. And when, as a woman's advocate, that is a punch to the gut to any woman who have been murdered. Because if they have not said, they acknowledge that the woman was murdered, that the turn of events that took place is that it was no aneurysm.
I didn't know that Dr. Campbell was now PR for the People's National Party.
Well, Wayne, this could be done deliberately, to sort of protect.
Because Dr. Campbell is selling this from the media unit under Dr. Campbell auspices. We knew him as the general secretary.
Okay, so this statement came out December 18, and them still at that about sympathies to family and friends affected by the distressing event. Why they never say affected by the murder, which is we're now knowing after the
tragic death. A tragic death is just a distressing event. The person could dead from a heart attack, drowning, accident. Anything can be a tragic death, but you can't go call a murder, a killing, a tragic death. It may be a tragic death in the sense of, but it's quite different to a tragic death of a natural occurrence. So them stop haul the wool over with I and use the word killing. If they don't want to use the word murder, killing, she was shot. It is evidence. The postmortem said she was shot. What is the problem in using the word killing? It's all deliberate.
Are you the moderator and the leader for that program? But let me just ask you a question.
Mm-hmm.
If if you come from Jamaica and you grew up in Jamaica, you will know say them the people there where them live. Them high society people in a jungle. And I like down a jungle where if a man did everybody just run on the crime scene. And I saw it work up there saying.
Well, this is showing,
So
no, admittedly, this is showing us that because Silvera from we know have not yet been arrested for questioning. If that
wasn't the world arrested already from them get the autopsy report.
Sonny, from the 11th, if I did anywhere else in the world, Silvera would have been arrested from the 11th of November. Because
yes,
police who does proper investigation would have spot that there's something happened.
Yes, and when a family member died in a them kind of era there, you try to protect them. The only people who should have the information where KamlaForbesz are the police there. Yes, you're not supposed to have bringing all the people come from crime scene after your family member dead. And so you do it. You bet the police them do them work.
How did Right Mango know the amount of blood?
She must have seen picture, or maybe she was there on the scene.
Can she speak to the time that the husband got there? She said he wasn't there initially. This woman have a lot of questions to answer, you know. The problem is it's Bailey gonna question her.
I know if Bailey gonna question her, but everybody is saying that he should. But listen, this now way. For 6 weeks, knowing that there was blood coming out of the woman's nose, knowing that 30 people there on crime scene, husband wasn't there, knowing all that she's saying she knows. Why is it that for 6 weeks she has been silent, but suddenly after the autopsy and after all fingers are pointing at the husband and questioning the husband, why now she come out in this elaborate reporting?
This is why I'm asking from yesterday, is she covering up a crime? And further, if she isn't, has she been given a narrative to distract the public?
Yes, I think so. I absolutely think so.
But
I don't know how this is going to turn out. A lot of people are saying that there's not going to be any justice for the woman. It is sad to even think that that's possible, because we need to start seeing a Jamaica where justice is served. You know what I'm saying? And it doesn't matter to me who did the deed, whether husband, whether hijab, whether friend, whether co-worker, it don't matter to me. The woman forget justice way, and we cannot stop talking about it.
If she was murdered in her room, and the evidence were destroyed and cleaned up before we found out that it's a murder, if it's an illegal gun that was used to do the murder, that could also be disposed of. If it's his licensed gun that he used to do the murder, he can change the clip on it and it wouldn't carry a chase. With the legal system looking for guilt beyond reasonable doubt, how would MelissaSilvera, under what I've just explained, get justice?
You see, it goes back to the delay in the pathology report, man. Okay? So since we are 6 weeks out since she died, it no matter where the police, in my view and my honest view, because you know me, the honest person, 6 weeks out, think of all the things that could have been done to cover this murder. Remember them change tile, them renovate, when Mrs. them change tile, you know, me I say, all right then, it look like so that the whole room they did blood.
There have to be a level of bleeding for you to dig up the floor.
Yes. So the whole room is renovating, painting, and all of this is reported. So what? Think about all the other things that could have been
with
done.
All of those evidence destroyed, how would MelissaSilvera get justice in a justice system where you can only convict such a person beyond reasonable doubt. If the evidence is not there, how would Mrs. Silvera get justice?
She cannot get no justice. She can't. The police, them have to go just work with her. Them can't tell you. Them can't. The autopsy tell us she died from whatever cause, which is murder, gunshot. But placing somebody at the scene, like you said, can only be done electronically by going, by the devices, going by phone, just like how cartel situation ended up with, the electronic device and stuff. Them can try right there, so to see where the husband was or who he did in communication with. Them can try to see if there was anybody else in the home at the time. It is so sad that when you hear that the kid discovered the mom and called the father, you can't question those kids. Technically, the kids being in the home at the time, they would have probably been witnesses, but they're too young to be called as witnesses. Can't put them through that. So it's going to be whatever electronic evidence that they can use.
If the information that the kids found the mother dead and called the father, what was the problem why that narrative couldn't be put in public from the 11th of November?
The 11th of November, Wayne, there was a cover-up. Okay? So, listen, when a blogger is going
So I'm basically saying, Sonny, the after the fact information mustn't be swallowed or taken. This whole kid's story is a new lie. They're just scrambling to see what will stick. Or probably using the children, the audience won't go so hard on the children. I told Mr. Silvera from the other night, clear your children out of this because I will drug them until we find justice.
But wait, look here now. If you're all right, so make we say him never see the wife shot, which I can't imagine that. Like, me just can't imagine that. If at some point in time, because the way the girl attack, the Kamla girl, the way how she attack, like the never see the woman body at all after she did. Not so you get it.
Okay, let's buy that story. In Mr. Silvera's period of grief, why Mr. Silvera would take such busy time to be renovating his marital bedroom? Does a grieving husband really have so much time and focus? If a husband is really grieving,
it definitely looks suspicious. I would say that. Let us say that he never see the woman body because he was so distraught. He was so, so sad about it. He never did it.
No, he has to. I will push back on that. Somebody has to.
True the woman says so, True the woman says so. True she said never did it. Let us say here, right? How is it that he can sit quiet for 6 weeks, knowing that there was no autopsy, and people are saying the woman died in her sleep from aneurysm, when there's no autopsy?
He told Bobby Montague that in Bobby Montague's word. They didn't use the aneurysm, but he told Bobby Montague she died in her sleep beside him.
So why never come out and say, look here, Jamaica, I don't know what killed my wife yet because the autopsy is not done and I was not there? Why never say that?
Because in my view, this is Wayne's opinion. In my view, they did not know that the pathologist was going to be refused to bought out. My whole thing about this whole issue is the reason why it fall down on them. The pathologist refused to be bought out.
Them can't buy out them people is so easy. There are 5 of them, and these are some very highly educated people of what high standard for what they do. And so they're not, as a matter of fact, when my brother died, I went 2013 and I had to get his autopsy done and his body released so I could bury him. There were only 2 pathologists in Jamaica during that time. And let me tell you, they say people bad. You know how we get the report? You know, we get a report that bury my brother in 2 weeks, so me there at Jamaica for bury him. Me have to pay up, me have to slide off money give a man. Because the man there, the man deal with the paperwork. So he could have advanced my brother's paperwork. And I had to pay. And I was the man who do my brother autopsy was an Indian doctor, and didn't come from Jamaica. So the situation under this government, them added 3 more pathologists, making it 5, but it's just not enough. It's not enough, and this shortage of pathologists in the country
allow them to get away with the cover up this long.
And can you imagine how much people cover up them something here? Look on the bigger picture.
Is the state going to open an investigation into the 2017 drowning of the 2-year-old Silvera? At least an investigation under the Child Endangerment Act. Do you think that should happen?
Yes, I think it should happen. You know why? Because there was a case, and I'm going to use the case in America. I mean, I was in the Beaches Stout case, but because Fim wife died, and then the previous one that died, you know, I don't they reopened that one. That's why I'm not going to use him as an example. But there's a police officer in Ohio here in America, and him did there with that woman. The woman turned up missing. Nobody can find her. Them come to find out, say no, him kill the woman. In previous wife, she died. Them say she licked her head in a bathtub, something like so, and them reopened that case. And right now, that ex-police is in prison for double murder. So these things are. I used to all these suspicions surrounding a murder, and the person now who, you know, whether they be husband, whatever, if there's anybody else that have died in their household, in their relationships, yes, I absolutely think that it should be reopened, because you don't know. I mean, you just don't know. This is terrible. For no say a mother, barely 41 years old, 3 little picnic, and the natural cause the woman did take the woman away from her kids. That is wickedness, Wayne.
Mrs. Silvera is an only child. It is said that Mr. Silvera was quite an abusive husband to Mrs. Silvera.
Yes.
Since the death of Miss Davis, Mrs. Silvera's mother, Mrs. Silvera has become filthy rich.
Oh, okay.
Could Mrs. Silvera have decided to walk out of abusive relationship because she can go and fend on her own now and make a new life and start a new life? I'm just thinking out.
Well, it is possible. I don't really know the dynamic of their marriage and their relationship. Of course, there are allegations out there that he was abusive to her. We heard that one time a comer did not want to fall in line, and him killed the comer dog and carried that yard. So there's a lot of things out there. So I don't really know, you know, if they had problems in their relationships. But as a student of psychology, Wayne, I can tell you this. He married this woman the 15th of December, December 2015. Later, he loses the election. He's no longer a member of parliament. And then a year later, they lose a child. So with all those losses in their marriage, him as the man in the relationship, you say if you're not firm in your mind, and if you don't have the emotional intelligence, some people not them think they well enough. You have situations where the man can blame the woman, You have situations where him stress right out is like, boy, we don't know what caused the death of the son still, but it's a loss nonetheless for them both. So with all of those losses, and I'm sure that he enjoyed the prestige of being a member of parliament. He lost that. That could have really hurt not just him but their family. And then the death of the child. I'm gonna know what else would have transpired, but it looked like since these two people got married, they have been, dealing with losses and things like that. That can cause problems between two people, but it really depends on the relationship between them, the intelligence of them, and how they get through, situations like that. It is sad, and all I want this is some people in your comment section. I not two people in my mind still, but it's like say they don't want people to come arms and gloves up the man, and people, me notice though. Everybody protests for Donnelly. Everybody, I say them should because Donnelly suffer wicked death and I know she not get no justice. But nobody not protest for that woman here, The PNP them, the Risers them, when in the
they're all very quiet. They're all very quiet.
They out of parliament with stool in them hand and sign. Oh, come nobody not protest for that woman here.
Because they are the ones who are involved in the cover-up. They are the ones. No, they can't stop me from talking because all the way happening in a public glaring for a question.
Oh.
If I did far enough of them, that them get pull up long time.
This not look good, man.
All of them would get pull up by police if I foreign them there.
They nearly got Paul where you go handcuff him for murder because they walk and talk on social media, say him set up him baby mother, him set up the baby, right? And that was such a turn off because a man have lose him pick them way there. And you come add insult to injury. Me not say questions are supposed to ask, But when you look at that case where clearly you had confessions, you had the police working overtime, no one heap of mystery never did it like this, right? Because the police them big or remember confession, So the boy didn't contact me. So with the energy where they have to Paul or they not have the energy for that money. So them are classes around here. Them are classes because this money are pretty here, man.
Oh yeah. You come from uptown and you have pretty hair and you have brown skin. But if you're black and you're big nose and you come from the ghetto, then we're just going to lift up the whole big black book around a station and throw after you.
And likewise, the people them will call themselves investigator and deputy police commissioner. Oh, they don't do a press conference for that one year.
Listen, the police was the first person to start the cover-up of the concealed crime. The husband concealed the crime. The police were one of the first. The brown uniform police.
What them the name?
The superintendents.
Superintendent, yes.
The brown uniform police are the first to start the cover-up of the concealment.
I mean, I bash the police in a way because I have two family members in the JCF.
No, but we know it's a whole heap of good one in there and a bad one in there, and because of the bad one, the good one, them can't get to flourish.
Yes, and the truth of the talk said we. So I don't want nobody feel like so we are going to bring down the police. Because I see what they might try to do,
No, we are talking about the brown uniform police, then we are prevent rank and file police from do them job.
Yes. But look here. If they have to bring down the police, they have to bring down the person. We tell the police to cover it up,
Obviously.
If they find out it up, I know that's the police to go down, There's somebody who conspire with the police and ask the police to shush and be quiet and come by themselves or whatever they might accuse the police of.
That is very
This
suspicious.
is a
That in
political
that incident, Jamaica have a 119 service or you call down.
yes.
Especially for people
And
live in a corporate area.
how are the man police coming in no time? Less than 5 minutes.
Uptown, you're there. You're a politician.
Yes. But you know what? When, remember, in 2016, we had a man murdered in the living room of the Prime Minister's lawyer. And even with that man in the house, saying him did sleep and him never hear nothing.
You feel say in the Prime Minister mansion with tall like the Twin Tower.
No, man,
and the killing happened. The Prime Minister lawyer living in a Twin Tower and the crime happening at the basement and him did up on the penthouse up at top. That's why you never hear nasty. You have to make
some big dog up there.
You have to make excuse for these people because them seem like them coming more dumber the more crime them commit. Because this is why this man can come tell us that my wife dead side and me peacefully in asleep. And then when the pathologist refused to be brought out, oh, I wasn't at home. Oh, at the picking find him dead and send come call me.
So when you say in Jamaica, tell you the truth, you see the leadership of the Jamaica Constabulary, it has to be people from outside of the country. Because when you can have people who are politically connected and murder people and get away with it, you cannot work. A country can't run that way. And you see some people, they don't want you to talk about the murder in a Patrick Bailey house, but they don't want you to talk about the murder of Melissa.
Exactly.
But
Sonny,
we have to talk about it, them too wicked and evil.
Sonny, if the Prime Minister cannot remove Chang for 7 years, you think there's any hope of that Prime Minister putting an independent crime fighter in place to fight crime in our country? If the Prime Minister refused for 8 years to even shuffle that office, bring in new idea, bring in new strategy, you think that's really something that is on the Prime Minister's thought or conscience?
Well, a poll was done about a year ago, and the poll revealed that 90 or 95% of Jamaicans had zero faith in the security minister and the commissioner of police. When you have a poll like that, which I'm sure the Prime Minister and his cabinet are aware of, when you realize that the people have no confidence in your security apparatus, it is time to make a change. So when you have incompetence in a country where murders are so high, where prosecution is so low, where corruption and murder cover-up is so high, then look here. If you're not going to replace them, the people, it don't mean say come here about crime. Come here about crime and competence, So right now, the way me see, come talk to you and hear already way about, current events in Jamaica and so on. If you have a government, remember crime is our number one problem in Jamaica. Wouldn't you agree with that?
Correct.
All right. So if you have a government that is not approaching crime correctly and honest and genuine,
not even approaching it correctly, have any plans at all to approach it.
Exactly. And if you have an opposition where there's a murder and they are covering it up and they are silencing it and they are hushing it and they now disassociate themselves from then we are telling me, so if we go switch out Andrew, want to see them people here?
No, but this is the question I'm asking Mark Golden this evening. Would you be asking us to give up a thief for one who is standing with an alleged murderer? Would you want us to give up a thief for an alleged murderer? Mark Golden needs to answer that question because we'll be going to the polls soon.
Let me tell you a little secret right now, so I can't talk this here, so. If Mark Golding never dismissed Dayton Campbell, you know what Mark Golding them did instead of dismissing Dayton Campbell? Everybody knows that somebody I can talk about saying Dayton Campbell sue me. Dayton Campbell now win a lawsuit over me. We in a court right now because Karen Cross said that Dayton Campbell is a serial pedophile. And he sued Karen and true. Me and one of them have been out there and said them wicked because them sabotage PNP. Dayton make them tell him, make Bunting them tell him to put my name in a lawsuit. Me not care because I have my lawyer Jamaica. Right? We've been going to court for 3 years. The case is not closed. The case is not complete. We're still at it. Okay? And Dayton now is fighting for his life in this lawsuit when come with because he is accused of sleeping with some underage picnic. And the decision now is whether the case should go forward to trial and whether the defenses should be thrown out. You cannot accuse somebody of defaming you, but you want to throw out their defense. They have to defend themselves. Am I right or am I wrong?
That's true. You have to have a defense. Once there's a complaint, you have to have a defense.
Yes, so I don't talk in a court because I have my lawyer. So I am just saying, and I've only spoken and said this on your program, because what Mark Golding did, instead of send home Dayton because of these allegations, and say, look here, it now going to look good for the party. This need to complete first. Because, by the way, Dayton is now being sued by 3 people. Darren Barnes, Upneil Lawrence, and Patrick Roberts. Patrick, what's him again? The man from the St. Thomas. James Roberts. So instead of sending one Dayton Campbell, you know what they do? You see the court case I go on now, they mark it as private court. You know what that means? It means that the media and nobody can go access the case to see the proceedings. So if me not come out here and tell you how it go.
Yeah, they put an anonymity on the case.
Yes, so they mark it as private. Well, they can't private that one, you know. They can't private that one, you know. You understand? So none of them can step to me. And the people that look 1 and 2 ticky, they look ticky, them we are talking and comment at our boss or Dayton sue me. Dayton can't win me no time. Me a warrior by nature. In a Jamaican diaspora, Dayton can't come get no default judgment for me, no. They can't get no default judgment because anything they come never answer them because I idiot, I'm not ducky bad.
The People's National Party on this issue and a lot of issues to do with credibility and where they stand, they have a lot of questions to answer. This has blown them out in public where they will need to reassure the public of their credibility and where they stand. But Mark Golding can't come ask for vote for people with dubious characters. After that is what we're all here trying to get rid of.
That's the question that people are asking right now is why, because me have a vice note, you know. Me might have shared it in a private still, but me have a vice note here. A man from over Mark Golding camp said to me, say, I mean him always have a back and forth because him say, you know, Ray, whatever, Chuma always about them out. For what they do, the sabotage and stuff. Him said to me, say this evening, him agree with me that Mark Golding should come on the record and come public, come say that he has relieved Silvera of all his duties to the People's National Party until the investigation is complete. From Mark Golding camp, that's a time.
Let me threaten Mark Golding while you are here. You, Mark Golding, need to get in front of the camera, clarify the statement that you made and tell me who you give sympathy to, your relationship with Mr. Silvera, relieve Mr. Silvera of any duties to the People's National Party and to the Mark Golding campaign. Otherwise, Mark Golding, it will be an absolute onslaught of voice recording between me and you. You will know what Angela Brownberg think of you. You will know what Tara Playfair think of you. Don't get me started, Mark Golding, because I will blow your house up. You see, Dr. Nesbitt tell Andres if they blow the thing up from the basement. There's a lot of recording, Mark Golden, that can blow your house out of the water. That when you go election more divided than ever. One of me even cut down from 14 to 4 seats. Be careful how you play this game. Because you know you have a lot of cynics around you already, and I can put you and them at war.
What about say? But when I wonder if we were here, when name there? Dennis Meadows. Dennis Meadows contact said the man is weak and the man not.
I know Dennis Meadows alone think so, Sonny. I don't Dennis Meadows alone think so. Most of them in a golden. Dr. Alfred Daz, come here. Not because you hear me tell you what you say, me now go play your recording them. The whole on no push Mark Golden to do the right thing. All on there. The whole on no push Mark Golden.
When me the program Calamity Junction, me nearly dead. What that?
The whole on no push Mark Golden to do the right thing. Because let me tell you something. And Dr. Daz, come out here and deny that you wasn't a part of the plot with Andre Stevens to challenge Mark Golden on conference floor for leadership. Come out here and push back on that, Dr. Daz. And then the bangarang. And then the bangarang will start. Until the People's National Party do the right thing, it will be a heap of bangarang over here. So you all push Mark Golden in the direction to do the right thing. Otherwise, Mark Golden will know what Tara Playfair think of him, what Angela Brownberg think of him, what Dr. Dawes think of him. You don't want a bangarang start, Mark Golden, because you will have nobody to support you when I done with you and them. So drop the murderer if you want the rest to stay. Come, we put you on the rest at war.
Back to bad. When the labor right them and see George right and the sitting and beat up the woman with the stool, they had no choice. They had no choice but to come out.
To disassociate themselves, take away his JLP membership and let him stand independently.
They never have no choice. And when you are a smart person, even if you're a shit leader, when you're a smart person, you have to understand the implication of association that is negative to a major political party.
All of this.
And this a murder, and they don't want to disassociate themselves from this man. That means that this man probably has no serious secret for them then.
All of this show that Mark Golden is a classist bourgeoisie.
But we remember, say the man talk it already, say him is a privileged son of the soil, him don't make him money already. Him run with the comrade, them and say no need none of
wellness warrior, out of a thief and a murder. Who would you prefer walk with?
Jesus.
Me and the thief may thief together and survive, but the murder may kill me upon the road. Out of a thief and a murderer, who would you prefer to walk with?
One thing me vex about today, you see UIC? UIC, this start did look a little promising. I mean, last night, me that listen to, last night, which night did I talk about UIC? I'm going to drop asleep. But me hear you that talk about, when named Joseph Paddison. You know, Joseph Paddison and the UIC did start look promising when they first came out.
Very much
and
so.
I write up to Joseph Paddison. I'm going to say, look here, you see what you do? You're starting a movement and it's looking good so far, but stop from make this COVID-19 thing, you know, your central argument as you're discouraging people against it, because you have to let people decide on their own who wants to take it and who don't want to take it, because you want the support of everybody. But he was so fixated on that until he met the government now, shut him down, and then the internal problem and then collapse. Right now, you know, see no third party. Look what the country are dealing with.
This is the problem. You have a dictator, a corrupt thief, a crook who you want to get rid of. And then there is no choice because the other set of them are murderers and corrupt, covering up murder.
No, Jamaica, for make a change. So one woman were there, one Jamaican, she's over Singapore. And the woman, I felt that one to my heart. When the woman talks, say, Singapore came to Jamaica for a blueprint to make for them country a prosperous country and a more stable.
Jamaica economic blueprint. Singapore reach and use and reach where they are today. And look at where Jamaica is. We just have kill people. We just have kill people like a Palestine with this. So.
Yes, the corrupt politician is my problem.
Why don't they call Jamaica Western Israel?
They might as well. Mr. One look at documentary come out with some little youth talk about gang and what they might do and them sitting there. And when they hey.
Listen, if Horace Chang a walk on an issue one whole container of AK-47. And when I spoke about this the other night, it wasn't flanker alone. Dr. Chang arm. The distribution was done in flanker. But the 3 bus load will come and get them bus load up with AK-47. Went their separate direction. So Dr. Chang need to tell us, other than flanker, in that 2001 distribution of a container of AK-47, can you tell us the other 3 communities, other than flanker, that you arm within that shipment of illegal guns, Dr. Chang?
We're not on the recording with Dr. Chang.
No, man. Dr. Chang, Juliet, Andrew, Nesta, not Delano, what them name? Alando Terry Long. Them people they don't really spend much time with. Them people they don't call Angie. You have the Babses, the Roders, the Montagues, the Clarks, the Steve Wrights, and a whole pile of labas. But will be me and them. But I'm going to stick with the Mark Golden, the Right Mango, the Dayton Camp. And I want to ask Bobby Montague, because you spoke to him early the morning on the 11th. I am also aware that Bobby Montague is a close friend of Mr. Silvera.
Yes, them go to school together.
Did you, Bobby Montague, retain the services of qualified only because them come from Uptown Peter Champagne to represent Mr. Silvera? Did you, Mr. Bobby Montague, seek the services of only qualified because them come from Uptown Peter Champagne to represent Mr. Silvera? Now, Sunny Days, if this is true, then about Labour and PNP, the pandikill and the cover up.
Why? From me, a little girl I grow now here, me hear say, the whole of them are friend, man. From a little bit I grow. And it's so sad that, yes, you know, me I wonder if a true Noel Maitland and police make people defend Donnelly and not defend that woman here.
Because it's rather odd, because there's even more clearer evidence come out in this year, 1 year, than the Donnelly situation, because the strongest we had in Donnelly was the recording.
Yes,
then, remember, she was an only child for her mom.
Yeah, man, but she must have cousin, auntie, uncle. She must have family. She must have family. If I go people with no from she a little girl, look here, I would not want to be a woman under them regime. Yeah.
No, women are not respected and women are treated very unfair and brutally by these politicians. But at least when George Wright beat the woman with the stool, even though they were a bit slow to action, the Labour Party took action in time that calmed the nation down.
Yeah, because they have to look at both sides, they have to look at the fact that he's an elected member of parliament. So it's not like, say, them could have just put him out at the parliament constitutionally. He has to be voted out.
Yes.
But on a party level,
they remove his party membership.
Yes, so they would have to look at their options and see what they can do. Because I don't think, correct me if I'm wrong, or your viewers can, if the JLP or anybody have had to deal with a situation like with George Wright, because remember the Constitution was called into question where these situations are concerned. So they acted, and that's good. I was happy to see that. But at the same time, this year now, I feel like that woman get
a very, very, very raw deal for something which is so glaring. Because one of the big thing here, there is no sign of breaking an entry that anyone spoke about in public. And MelissaSilvera isn't arrested. Peter Champagne is saying the police is not treating MelissaSilvera as a suspect. And there's no breaking an entry. This is so glaring.
The police not treat him as a suspect because it's Jamaica. One of the things that must be
because him rich and half white.
Well, I don't know if I'm rich, Wayne. I don't know if I'm rich.
Well,
but I know.
MelissaSilvera's mother died, left her quite well positioned. So, as the marriage last state, the two of them are one. What is for the wife is for him. So, I go say that them rich.
Okay then, all right then. But this woman need an advocate, Wayne. She needs somebody. You have all these.
What to our friend them from uptown, where she and them go drink and dine and go to school to? What happened to them classic woman there from uptown, Sonny? Them woman they were always take the abuse uptown and come out with dark as a cover up them face. Woman don't come out, come talk now because Silvera never turn a monster overnight. Something lead up to Silvera getting here. A time for no uptown woman run out pan road up like a ghetto girl and say, lick me again if you're bad.
No, so
stop protect them and them uptown. Stop protect the criminals.
It will stop politics too. You see, at 3 years now, all who know my blogging and know me on social media, don't say at 3 years now, me a bona fire upon this leadership in a PNP. This particular leadership, anytime you see them come out in front of podium, you see 50 man and 2 women. You see all them treat woman, they expel woman from party, then come and sue woman, then bring down woman, then set blog upon woman, then do all manner of things. I want to see that, me say, see them boy will kill a woman.
This is why I'm so upset with this ripe mango nonsense.
Them they are so cast on hang-arounds, them they beg credit and walk and pound of rice and big jilla eyes kind of people them there, So you don't even need to take not what you say like.
As a woman who calls herself social justice vlogger, she's just narrative spouting.
Nobody man just focus on what the woman say man and implicate the man and she can implicate the thing further
Yes.
Because she come say the man never did it, blood a run down nose and get something when we think say boy is a big pool of blood because then change out the tires. So what she come tell me say now is that major clean up one.
Let's see if Bailey is going to caught slipping again. Even though the superintendent, the initial superintendent who visited the scene has messed the whole thing up.
Why is it that?
Because based on his style of investigation and possible maybe friendly communication or connection with Mr. Silvera, this have given 5 weeks to destroy a lot of evidence. Even if we know that it is Mr. Silvera who murdered Mrs. Silvera, what the law requires, we may not be able to prove it as a state to convict Mr. Silvera. Because there could be a massive lack of evidence. And you cannot convict someone on lack of evidence. Otherwise, you're just setting the appeal or the Supreme Court or the Privy Council to throw the judgment down.
Well, we look on it from this angle. I now disagree with you because I really don't know. But there's also the possibility that the superintendent and any law enforcement officer that was called.
Sorry, Miss Day's call got cut off, but I will continue the conversation. Angela Brown-Burke, as the chairperson for the People's National Party, direct Mr. Golden to do the right thing. Because I don't think we want to come out in a worse situation than it is. Hello, Miss Days. Good evening. Welcome back to Global TV.
Yes, sir. Yes. So I think I was saying that if the police got there after cleanup or cover-up was done, then I guess you could say that the police did what the police was working with what he saw and what he was told. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
So it could have been both ways. But you see, just like how COVID teach you a lesson, say, look here, we live in a time now where we have to get digital with education and stuff like that. What this is showing us, Wayne, is that we need to get more pathologists working in Jamaica. We need to get more pathologists. Somebody from the pathology,
we need to have pathology done in Jamaica within 24 to 72 hours.
Yes, 6 weeks. 6 weeks is unheard of. We have been doing this for too long. And people are getting away with murder and covering up murder because we do not have the proper staffing of pathologists to do these autopsies in a timely manner.
But
so we are learning something new here.
If this was a planned crime, because when I finish, I have some questions to ask Mr. alleged murderer. If this if this was a natural death, in any and under any circumstances, an unexplained death, the state ought to have an inquest. As part of that inquest, there ought to be an autopsy to establish cause of death.
I think that's the protocol.
That is the protocol. That is the protocol.
Yes. If she had no pre-existing condition, she just drop and did so.
Did Mr. Silvera push back because he's the legal next of kin? He has to sign off on the autopsy. Did Mr. Silvera push back on an autopsy being done on Mrs. Silvera? It is important for us to know.
Well, it's also important to know whether he needed to sign off on one as a spouse. I don't know if that's always the case because you can't have
a next of kin need to sign the papers before the autopsy is done.
You don't know if I saw it go to Jamaica, but that's
No, I saw it go to Jamaica. In 2018, we had a death in our family that the hospital that was because of medical negligence. And we did not want to accept what the government pathologist was going to say, that was going to give us. And they had to wait until we hire our own private pathologist to come and oversee the government pathologist doing the post-mortem. And the family, the next of kin, have to sign off on the post-mortem before it can be done. And in the circumstances, Mr. Silvera is the legal next of kin for MelissaSilvera.
So suppose you never sign it, or suppose a spouse kill them spouse and then don't want to sign the paper. You know what do that?
Then the government will have to still do it.
Oh, that's interesting. I'm glad that the autopsy was done. Better late than never. Because after 6 weeks, the nation thinks that the woman dead in her sleep and dead from aneurysm. So now the truth come out. Even though it's late, we're still hoping that justice will be served. And even if justice is not served, we must ostracize these people from society, from our parliament, from anything we have to do with overseeing the people's business, because we cannot trust these people.
Mark Golden and the People's National Party must not get away with this murder that they're concealing and covering up. They must not get away with it.
The Rise United faction win in the PNP. Silvera is a part of the right. Them alone are provide up. You understand?
Yeah.
Yes, I said the PNP are provide up because it's in truth and in fact. I know the PNP are provide. The Rise faction are provide. I them get called to come from murder scene and everything. So
well, we need to call them out at all levels. But one thing we will not do is to be drunk to the pool for people who are calling a murder or an illegal killing a tragic death. It is so much a different thing to say a tragic death than or to say killing. They're so much different.
And not disassociating themselves.
And not disassociating themselves from an alleged murderer.
That is it. Yes, so in memory of Melissa, and for the sake of Melissa's children, we the people, we the bloggers and the vloggers, we have to keep the story alive, because if we shut up and we don't talk, somebody ever get away with murder.
Oh yes.
Somebody ever get
just like mainstream media kept social media kept Donnelly case alive and push it and something happened. Let us do the same thing, because the way they're cheating this woman, you wouldn't expect she was one of their uptown clique.
Yes, exactly.
You wouldn't expect she's one of the uptown cliques.
And in a way, I am glad that her mother, her late mother, was not around to see what they did to her, because her mother was a lifelong servant of the People's National Party of Sisse.
Mm-hmm.
The girl married in at the party, and the same people then were supposed to be, were supposed to be.
Are born in at the party because it is said her godfather is former Prime Minister P.J. Patterson.
Yes. So if it's the same dirty people then know what happened to the woman, and them now sugar out care. It I don't know, as a mother.
It is very disgraceful to know that it's our politician and our security services that is behaving in this manner.
Somebody named Kate in your comment said it man kill the woman. Kate you must just come to never hear why Mark Woolley.
Can I take a moment here to big up Isaac Buchanan's show? The name of the show is Context Matters. And I really love the name of Isaac's show and channel. The reason is a lot of us Jamaicans and the black people in general why we're finding it so difficult to solve problem, or why we keep getting into more problem than ever. We keep arguing and looking at things out of context. Context matters. Context matters. Mark Golden is the president of the People's National Party. MelissaSilvera was a MP, and he now served other roles in the People's National Party, including one of them who is quite close to Mark Golden and is around Mark Golden on a regular basis.
Every day.
We saw Mark Golden distance himself from Isaac Buchanan on the issue of free speech, rightly or wrongly. How can you distance yourself on free speech, but you cannot use the word killing or murder after a woman was shot in her bed multiple times? How does this not have anything to do with Mark Golden, who is hoping to become our next prime minister and leader of our country, who cannot use the word murder, or cannot relieve Mr. Silvera of his duty or distance himself from Mr. Silvera until the investigation complete?
Because he has
Context matters.
Wayne, I'm gonna give you an example, and then I'm gonna let you finish your show.
Mm-hmm.
There was a school, I think down in Clarendon, where a member of the school board, he was in some kind of problem with murder,
Mm-hmm.
and the parents started complaining that, look, this man don't belong here. We don't feel comfortable with him here. And Zulika Jess, the attorney,
Mm-hmm.
who is now for a seat in the PNP, she did a press conference, and she said that she's calling on the Ministry of Education to call on this man to leave the post until his murder problem is finished. And within 24 hours, Carl Samuda, who was I think he was the acting Minister of Education when Royal Reid was in problem,
Mm-hmm.
call the man and tell the man to leave from there. No. So if the PNP could have didn't want somebody who under scrutiny for murder and implicated in murder to come out publicly, go on press conference, say must go on. Why they can't do that now? Yes, so the PNP did have more spine than Peter Phillips.
Everything that the PNP stood for in relation to social democracy, I think it went with Portia Simpson. Not that Dr. Phillips wasn't that person, but immediately Portia Simpson went, even though there was infighting there from the days of when Michael Manley left. But immediately Portia Simpson left, a barrage of sword throwing started to where the People's National Party is at 14 seats now and could possibly lose more.
Why it don't look good? Because even with Dayton Campbell destroyed PNP.
No, listen. Nobody in a private. Oh, you all heard it from what is this guy name? Dennis Meadows.
Yes.
Nobody in a private don't like Drayton in the PNP. The truth is the truth. The all of them are tiptoe around him because them want a seat. But nobody there not like him. Nobody there not willing to work with him.
He's despicable. It has nothing to do with the interest of the people for them. You see what happened today? You might have missed it, so let me just tell you.
Mm-hmm.
Down in Clarendon, the JLP have to call police on the rise of them. Charles Jr. was doing some road work and must be some water work or whatever down there.
Mm-hmm.
And the guy when him Sian Barneswell, he's a councillor for the PNP. Them start to be hostile on the workers, them who down there and fix the road. And them tell them, so them have to stop the work. And his excuse is they did not contact the council down there and get approval for the road work. So that's why now you see intimidation and police come part it and everything. But I'm saying, how the hell can you be so petty? If the guys are there fixing the road, let them fix the
No,
road.
here, Sonny, what you have to understand, it's political strategy being played out here. The Prime Minister...
At the people's expense?
Yes, the Prime Minister woke up overnight because local elections is 2 months away. The Prime Minister is spending 40 billions in our local roads. So what the Jamaica Labour Party is doing at the moment is hurrying around making presence on our local roads to get votes. And the PNP strategy is saying here, let's delay them so they don't get this at the election, and then when we come in, we can use it to make more promises for votes we up for the general election. I just think both of them are playing political strategy at us, at our expenses.
And it's not funny because you see the road and water politics style in Jamaica, that needs to stop.
It needs to stop. Because we don't get more than promise anyway, because we're going backwards to where what we used to it in the 80s, where at least we never have water in our running water in our house, but we did have a lot of standpipe across the community and we used to get water. Now the pipe them where you have in your house, you still have to buy tank and buy water from them in a them green truck with them picture on it. Don't see the problem we're in.
We're not the problem for true. We're in a stagnation situation. I don't see any hope. And what these guys did, these amateurs who are lead the PNP will take over the leadership of the PNP in the most hostile manner. Pay $10 million for the party. You see when me see that way, I just don't know Jamaica gone backwards, you know. Because I didn't know we don't get in that position here, because guess what? Jamaica need a new politics to begin with. And we don't hear that coming from either side, that listen, we have a vision, a long-term vision.
I'm not hoping for either side to come up with any better than they're doing now.
No, and it's just the truth. Remember, you used to hear about Vision 2030. Vision, you know about that keeping up?
No, Vision 2030 is keeping, but not an agenda for the Jamaican people. It's an agenda to force Western World Health Organization agenda upon us. That's what Vision 2030 is for us. The enforcement of World Health Organization agenda. So that's another debacle what we need to prepare for.
Yes, I thank you for your time.
You're
and
welcome.
To all your globalists them who have been courteous and accommodating.
Thank you.
Appreciate them. Yes,
and remember, we will be keeping this story live. They will not get away with this cover-up. If we cannot get a trial in the justice system, we, on social media, will have a public trial in this matter.
That is true. That same way. So, and guys, please come up and come subscribe to Jamaica Politics Uncovered. I will uncover everything. They're not people too wicked.
Nice to have you, and we'll keep the conversation going.
Yes, have a good night.
Okay, thank you. Yes, this was Global TV, and now we are going to continue some conversation and questioning with Mr. Silvera. Right, Mango said you wasn't at home. When you came home, Mr. Silvera, in which bedroom did you find Mrs. Silvera? When you got home, if you wasn't there, when you got home, in which bedroom you found Mrs. Silvera? It is alleged, Mr. Silvera, that you shot your wife in her private area. It is alleged, Mr. Silvera, that you've shot Mrs. Silvera in her private area. It is also alleged that Mrs. Silvera's body was cleaned up. A girdle was placed on Mrs. Silvera. Mrs. Silvera was moved from the marital bedroom to the visitor's bedroom. Who did all those work if Mr. Silvera wasn't at home? If Mr. Silvera wasn't at home, and when Mr. Silvera came home, did Mr. Silvera not find it strange that Mrs. Silvera died in the guest bedroom? Is it normal for Mrs. Silvera to sleep in the guest bedroom? If Mrs. Silvera was sleeping in the guest bedroom that night, was there any animosity between Mr. and Mrs. Silvera prior to the 10th of November? If it is that you came home, it couldn't be that the Secret Services had murdered your wife so cutely that they leave no trace of evidence for Mr. Silvera to look around and say, this look odd. Mr. Silvera, when I come into my house, and if a book is moved, I'll be able to know if that book is moved, because I know the position I leave my things in. Did anything when you get home, Mr. Silvera, did anything raise your suspicion that one, your wife may have been murdered, or your wife may have committed suicide? Was there a gun beside Mrs. Silvera? If Mrs. Silvera committed suicide, was there a gun beside Mrs. Silvera? If there was no gun beside Mrs. Silvera, then we can rule out suicide. Did you shot Mrs. Silvera in her genitalia? Did you clean up Mrs. Silvera, place a girdle on her, and place her into the bedroom, and that would distract the brown uniform police when attending, because Mrs. Silvera wasn't in the room where the crime was committed? Is Fitzbailey investigating from that point of view? Did Mrs. Silvera, one of the audience is asking me to ask this question, did Mrs. Silvera have a licensed firearm? And if so, was there any bullet discharged from Mrs. Silvera's firearm? To Mr. Silvera and KamlaForbesz, what time did Mr. Silvera get to the residence? If Mr. Silvera didn't stay home all night, what time did Mr. Silvera get to the residence? If it is that somebody killed Mrs. Silvera while Mr. Silvera wasn't at home, why would Mr. Silvera, in his time of grief, in his time of a relapse, grief, because the death of his wife, if Mrs. Silvera died in her sleep, the death of his wife would automatically cause a relapse in his grieving process, or the mechanism of controlling his grieving process for the loss of his son. He would immediately go into a relapse. What was Mr. Silvera's mood? What time did Mr. Silvera get home? What was Mr. Silvera wearing? It is important. In the panic, if Mr. Silvera did even leave the house, in the panic, Mr. Silvera may have worn the bloody clothes when he was leaving, or the clothes with the gunshot residue. Mr. Silvera might well change and come back. If Mr. Silvera is saying he wasn't at home, and he has given Fitzbailey an alibi of particular area that he was and particular route that he drove, has Fitzbailey requested any CCTV or any Jamaica Eye that is available to back up Mr. Silvera's alibi as not being at home? The room, though, Mr. Silvera, that's the thing that most of us cannot get our head around. The room, Mr. Silvera. I mean, you're grief-stricken, you're shocked. You know, Melissa wanted to do a refurbishment of this room. Are you doing it in Melissa's memory because Melissa so wanted to do a refurbishment of the room, or are you hiding something? Because it cannot be that a grieving husband with young children to console and take care of, that doesn't even have one, I don't know about Mr. Silvera's mother, but don't even have their maternal grandmother to console and support them at the moment. But daddy is busy digging up the floor in the room, burning the room, moving out, taking out and burning the bed, painting the room. What is daddy hiding? Your children is asking you, Mr. Silvera, what is daddy hiding? Are you going to really bring your children into this, Mr. Silvera? It doesn't mean that because you all are going to say that one of the children phoned her and called you. Don't think we're ever going to accept that. Provide us the evidence. There would have been a telephone call to Mr. Silvera. Tell Mr. Silvera, give consent to get a comprehensive download of his conversation, both text and audio. Text and audio. Is Mr. Silvera willing to hand over everything to the police for investigation purposes? Is Mr. Silvera willing to cooperate with the police in their investigation? At what point, back at the class, Dunslacker Drayton Campbell, qualify only because you come from uptown Dunce, Peter Champagne? At what point are you going to advise your client to plead guilty? Back at the class, qualified because you come from uptown, at what point will you advise your client to plead guilty? But let me tell Ripe Mango and the team of PNP, risers or donors, what we're not going to accept from you. And this is in closing. We're not going to accept that Mrs. Silvera was in an extramarital affair. We're not going to accept from you all that Mrs. Silvera had brought in her lover into the marital home while Mr. Silvera wasn't at home. And Mrs. Silvera's lover took her life. We will not have that. We will not have that. Another thing that we will not have, when the ballistic test comes back, we will not have the argument that the bullet found in Mrs. Silvera's body doesn't match the discharge or whatever gun bullet coming from Mr. Silvera's gun. We are aware, Mr. Silvera, that changing the clip on the gun, it would take away the chase. We are all, if it was your licensed firearm. We're also aware that you have 5 weeks to destroy tantamount of evidence, including blood forensics, illegal firearm, and all sorts. We are aware. Will Fitzbailey be ordering a lie detector for Mr. Silvera? Will Fitzbailey or the court be ordering a lie detector for Mr. Silvera? But don't think we're ever going to leave this. We're going to continue to question. We're waiting for Dr. Nesbitt and Fitzbailey, because that was the role played by Ripe Mango the morning when she run barefoot, figure mind people business, and kept her mouth shut for 5 weeks until a pathologist refused to be bought out by the entire PNP risers clan that decide to assist Julian Silvera in his concealment of the crime by a string of cover-up from state operative to state security services. This is where Global TV leave it for tonight. We will continue our question of our politician on our security services. But one thing for sure, if MelissaSilvera death goes unpunished by law, we will make sure we have our own public trial right here on social media. I want to thank you all for being here tonight. It was good after a few days to have come back into your presence. Tomorrow night we'll be coming to you, probably from somewhere in the Midlands. We don't know yet, but thank you for being here. If you're new to this platform, please subscribe. We don't ask for anything over here except a to subscribe and like and share. That's all we ask. This is one of the frontier in social justice, and we are here to inform and educate the people. This is our mission. That's why we don't really block anyone over here, or we don't let them get us upset, because we are here to educate, and if we bury them or turn them away, they're going to continue to walk in their ignorant or their selective darkness. As we see, Dr. Campbell cannot use the word killing, he rather used the subliminal tragic death in order to continue the concealment and the cover-up of a crime. This was the people's point of view, and we will be back with you tomorrow. Thank you very much, and we will see you tomorrow evening. To those on TikTok, thank you very much. To those on the X, thank you. Thank you to those on Facebook, and to our anchoring platform, those on YouTube. Thank you very much, and we will be back with you tomorrow. See you all. Good night.